March 27, 1977. A calm afternoon in the Canary Islands. Passengers boarded two massive Boeing 747 aircraft, expecting nothing more than a normal journey across the Atlantic. Families settled into their seats, cabin crew prepared for departure. Pilots completed routine checklists inside their cockpits. Nobody on board knew they were about to become part of the deadliest disaster in aviation history. This is the story of the Tenerife Airport Disaster. Earlier that day, a bomb explosion at another airport in the Canary Islands forced several flights to divert to a much smaller airport on the island of Tenerife, Los Rodeos Airport. The airport was never designed to handle so many large aircraft at once. Taxiways became crowded. Airplanes were parked wherever space was available. Among those diverted flights were two Boeing 747s, one operated by KLM, the other by Pan Am. At first, it seemed like only an inconvenient delay. Passengers waited patiently. Pilots monitored schedules. But slowly, conditions began to change. A thick fog started rolling across the airport. Visibility dropped rapidly. Pilots could barely see ahead of them. Air traffic controllers could no longer visually track aircraft positions. Everything now depended entirely on radio communication. Inside the KLM cockpit sat Captain Jakob Feldhausen van Zanten, one of the airline's most respected and experienced pilots. He was calm under pressure, a senior training captain, a man trusted throughout the aviation industry. But aviation accidents are rarely caused by one dramatic mistake. Sometimes they begin quietly. The KLM flight had already faced long delays. There were growing concerns about operational timing and crew duty limits. Pressure slowly began building inside the cockpit. Meanwhile, the Pan Am aircraft was taxiing through the dense fog, attempting to locate its assigned exit from the runway. But visibility had become extremely poor. The crew struggled to identify the correct taxiway. At the same time, radio communication between the KLM crew and air traffic control became increasingly confusing. Some transmissions overlapped, certain messages were interrupted, and in aviation, even a few misunderstood words can change everything. Then came the moment that would alter aviation forever. The KLM captain pushed the throttles forward. The giant Boeing 747 began accelerating down the runway, but the runway was not clear, hidden ahead in the fog. The Pan Am aircraft was still taxiing on the same runway. Inside the Pan Am cockpit, the crew suddenly saw bright landing lights appearing through the mist directly toward them. A Boeing 747 was racing straight at them. The Pan Am pilots desperately attempted to turn away. Inside the KLM cockpit, the crew realized the horrifying truth. The captain pulled back sharply, trying to lift the aircraft off early. For a brief second, it almost looked possible, but it was too late. At tremendous speed, the two Boeing 747s collided violently. The impact caused a catastrophic explosion. Fire engulfed both aircraft almost instantly. 583 people lost their lives. Only a small number survived from the Pan Am aircraft. The Tenerife disaster remains the deadliest accident in aviation history. But the tragedy also changed aviation forever. Investigators later discovered that the crash was not caused by a single failure, but by a chain of human factors: miscommunication, stress, assumptions, poor visibility, and cockpit hierarchy. At that time, junior crew members often hesitated to challenge senior captains, even when something felt wrong. Tenerife forced the aviation industry to completely rethink cockpit culture. After the disaster, airlines around the world introduced major changes to pilot communication and teamwork. Pilots were trained to question decisions when necessary, to communicate more clearly, to work together regardless of rank or experience. This became known as Crew Resource Management, CRM. Today, every professional pilot studies the lessons of Tenerife, because modern aviation safety was shaped by tragedies like this one. Behind every checklist, every radio phrase, and every cockpit procedure, there is often a story written in loss. And perhaps the greatest lesson from Tenerife was simple: clear communication saves lives. The fog that covered Tenerife that day may have hidden the runway, but it revealed one truth the aviation world could never afford to ignore again. If you enjoyed this aviation story and want to support the channel, please subscribe and join me for more aviation documentaries, crash investigations, and untold stories from the skies. Your support truly helps me create and share more stories like this.